hopefully, in celebration of 50 years of diversity and inclusion at Harvard Medical School. The homeless guy who shoved his grimy cup in front of me smiled, gap-toothed, said, "Man, you have a blessed day." I realized he was my neighbor, even as I looked away. Unasked, he gave me something, hope. In clinic, fluorescent lights abuzz, she tells me how her daughter died in childbirth. Depressed, she worries she'll turn back to drugs. She shows me pictures, tiny grandbaby, black as onyx. Her bright eyes make us hope. I had a teacher once who wouldn't leave the wards until all of the work was done. He spoke in hushed tones to the drag queen draped in KS lesions. To me, they looked hideous. He told her, in her beauty, there was hope. I wonder what she looks like under there. Teenagers sneer outside the ER as she passes on her way to work, in headscarf, white coat, scrubs. I wonder which patient's hand she'll warm when the rest of us give up hope. It's decorated with a rainbow flag, assorted bumper stickers, "I can't walk, duh," "Stairs suck," and "Desert Storm Vet," and foil red, white, and blue pinwheels. Inked arms propel his fly wheelchair, sweet chariot of hope. Another case of chronic pelvic pain. "You don't need an interpreter," they'd said. "My Spanish takes us back across the seething, white-hot desert." Anything to give her kids a chance. I don't know how to translate hope. What else I learned? A classmate, US Vietnamese, explained it wasn't the blood sloshing in their crammed boat that made him want to be a doctor. His surgeon father, stooped from picking strawberries, showed him work was hope. A day to celebrate. We're all still here. Among us, these undaunted heroes, told we were unworthy, deserving only grief. In healing their own wounds, they save us all. Their balm is justice. The cure they found is hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you for those inspiring words, for reminding us that medicine is really about humanity. It's about hope. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. It's an inspiration to see so many treasured alumni here, to be here for this day of celebration. Our community comes together today, both in this room and I understand in multiple overflow rooms. So be glad that you got a seat. I love seeing the energy. I am excited about what we're going to be celebrating. Like many of you, I too am an alum of Harvard Medical School. I chose HMS, have made it my career home. I earned my medical degree here. I did my clinical training at multiple Harvard-affiliated hospitals. I have, for the last 16 years, been operating a laboratory at the Children's Hospital. I was the director of the pediatric bone marrow transplant program at the Farber and the Children's up until 3 years ago when I became dean. So that is preparation H all the way, except for a brief detour to get my PhD at MIT. And I chose Harvard Medical School, and I have stayed here because this is an extraordinary community. It is a community that is dedicated to the highest ideals of excellence in teaching and learning, in discovery and scholarship, and in service and leadership. And our gathering together to celebrate 50 years of diversity at Harvard Medical School captures elements of each aspect of that mission statement. I have lived Harvard Medical School as a student, as a resident, as a fellow, as a clinician, as a scientist, as a faculty member, and now as dean. And it has been an extraordinary privilege, a privilege to be surrounded by, immersed in, the most brilliant minds of all of biomedicine. An essential part of my experience has been the enrichment that comes from enjoying individuals from all walks of life, from all parts of the globe, all brought together here at Harvard Medical School for one reason: excellence. The people is what makes Harvard Medical School the remarkable place that it is. Today, we're looking back to honor the leaders and the history of the 1969 diversity movement at Harvard Medical School, and we're here to learn and hear about their legacy. And we come together to reflect on the 1,350 students traditionally underrepresented in medicine who have been admitted here and have transformed this community over the last 50 years. We also pay homage to one very special individual, to someone who has touched my life, who's touched the lives, I think, of so many of you in this community, who has touched staff, faculty. There's not a single person who has passed through these halls whose experience has not been enriched by Dr. Alvin Poussaint. Dr. Poussaint is the founding director of the Office for Recruitment and Multicultural Affairs. He's also served as the Faculty Associate Dean for Student Affairs. And beyond those official roles, he has been a champion, a mentor, a listener, someone who has always had a broad smile and a pointed quip for many of us. And so it's particularly fitting that our community is coming together to recognize and honor Dr. Poussaint and Orma, because so many of us have seen his legacy and the home he created as such a safe haven. Now, with his retirement, but thankfully not his departure, we're going to be taking stock of where we are now. You'll be hearing more about our community and its efforts when Dean Saldana and Reed lead us later in that discussion. And I am the first to point out that while we are here today to celebrate the progress that we've made, we all collectively appreciate how much more work there is to be done. We have the task of weaving together the past successes and the failures with the realities and the challenges of the present so that we can envision the future that we all aspire to. That is the theme of what brings us together today. Building a culture of diversity, inclusion, integrity, and empowerment is central to the mission of this school. It's now deeply written into that mission, and it's a responsibility that I, as dean, take extremely seriously. So our time together today will conclude with a town hall meeting, which I will facilitate. And I look forward to hearing more from you at that time as we together can plot the future of Harvard Medical School. Because as you will hear now and again, we are better together. With that, please join me in welcoming Jennifer Potter to the stage. I didn't see her, Jennifer. It's Jennifer.
Welcome, Dr. Poussaint. I am honored to be here today to remember faculty leaders from the past who stood up and spoke up, acting on their convictions to turn the tide at HMS. Remembering these leaders would be a much easier celebration if the work that they had started was complete, but it isn't, especially today, and especially in medical education. Remembering these leaders is really a reminder to white allies like me and many others in this room today of our responsibilities to our URM students. Each day, we have an opportunity to step up for a new generation of Black and brown students, as well as queer and trans students, and first-generation students, and survivors of sexual assault, and students with disabilities, and many others. Let this celebration today serve as a reminder to all of us that we have the responsibility, like these leaders from the past, to be present for our students, to speak up for them, and to make systemic change for them. And now, to tell us a little about what actually happened 50 years ago, I'll turn it over to our Dean for Medical Education, Ed Hundert.
Great. Thank you very much, Jenny. First of all, let me welcome you all here as well. This has been just a thrill. Nancy Oriole, who helped put this together, Ron Arkey, many others. I just can't tell you how excited we are to have you here. And I want to start by thanking Scott Podolsky and Jonah Lacqua from the Center for the History of Medicine for sharing with me all of these original documents I've now pored over trying to learn what actually happened in 1968 and 69 to share with you. And I have to just say, in keeping with what George said, that reading these documents has been incredibly inspiring to me, but also it's been very sobering with how much could be written today. The same words, the same language, the same need, the same mission. And so we are celebrating our heroes, but we're also looking forward. And I'm glad that the symposium was put together that way. So what I'm going to do is just quickly show you 10 dates with some of the original documents that try to capture what happened in 1968 and 69. I just want to start by reminding us all that in 1969, Harvard Medical School was 187 years old, and there had been a total of 64 African-American students who had come through. And so as we celebrate many other heroes, we have to remember those 64 students and their experience when they came through here as well. So where to start in 1968? I thought I'd start with the Kerner Commission report. As many of you know, Lyndon Johnson appointed a commission chaired by Illinois Governor Otto Kerner to investigate the root cause of violence in the inner cities. And their report, in essence, said that the root cause of this violence was institutional racism in this country. The report said, our nation is moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. Martin Luther King Jr. called the report, using language we would all relate to, a physician's warning of approaching death with a prescription for life. Well, 5 weeks after that report was released, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And 4 days later, a group of 9 faculty began meeting intensively with one another to develop a plan, drawing in Dean Ebert to help behind the scenes helping make it happen. And what I want to do is just show you the proposal that they wrote up. This is the original document. And it's just 3.5 pages, and the title tells the plan, but the first paragraph speaks of the urgency. It was called A Program to Establish Scholarships at Harvard Medical School for the Support of 15 Negro Medical Students per year. And it started with this. There's an urgent situation in this country today. It has been urgent for some time, but apparently many of us need a dramatization of the situation to make us take an active part in solving the problem. It is clear that all institutions, governmental, industrial, educational, et cetera, have a role to play in creating equal opportunity in our society. The Harvard Medical School, as an educational institution adjacent to Roxbury, should be particularly aware of its responsibilities and opportunities. Well, here are the 9 signatures. 2 of the people are sitting right here. Many of the family members of these folks are here with us today. There were 4 neuroscientists, 2 microbiologists, and 3 clinicians. We should recognize them first. And what happened is they brought this proposal to a now famous faculty council meeting on Friday afternoon, April 26th, at which this program was introduced. And one of the important outcomes of this meeting was the appointment of a committee. It was called the Committee for Disadvantaged Students. It was chaired by David Potter. I'd note that Harold Amos was a member of this committee. He became the first Black department chair at Harvard Medical School. Paul Goldhaber, who is about to become the dean of Harvard School of Dental Medicine, was on this committee. The dental school was equally involved. And a second committee was shortly thereafter appointed called the Commission on Relations with the Black Community, and that was chaired by Dr. Leon Eisenberg, who also has members of his family here today. Importantly, both of these committees had students, and the students who are here, I want you to remember the importance of student activism in this story. Because on the same day of this meeting, the students circulated a petition, and more than half of the students of Harvard Medical School signed the petition, which actually arrived date-stamped at Dean Ebert's office the same day that he received a letter of support signed by 11 prominent department chairs. So here is the actual petition from the students. There are 287 signatures. Some of the people who signed this are in the room today. I just want, again, to read the introductory paragraph. It said, in light of the seriousness of civil disorders in our cities, the findings of the Kerner Commission, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King and its violent aftermath, many Americans are reevaluating their role in averting a violent racial crisis. The response of the white community can act to promote or prevent the further deterioration of life in our inner cities and relations between the races. The response of the health community to the racial situation will determine in part the future of our cities. This is the letter of support from the chairs. You'll see some very eminent names on this list, people who went on to become the dean of the School of Public Health, went on to found Physicians for Social Responsibility, win the Nobel Prize, and more. Well, at a subsequent faculty meeting, the program was formally approved. And what happened was immediately that disadvantaged students program was published. And here's where David Potter, Uncle David, played a wide role in disseminating it. I just wanted you to see what this looked like. This is a document. This is the official publication of the Disadvantaged Students Program. And again, I just want to read one paragraph that I think really stands out. The Harvard Medical School and the Harvard School of Dental Medicine have between them established at least 15 scholarships for each class for disadvantaged students. These schools do not employ quotas in their admissions policy, and no limit is implied in the present case. The students involved in this program would be in addition to the present enrollment at the medical school and the School of Dental Medicine. This language was informed by Derek Bell, professor at Harvard Law School, became the first tenured African-American professor at Harvard Law School, who was already, with the words like disadvantage, no quota, in addition to current enrollment, anticipating the legal challenges to this program. And indeed, it was exactly 1 decade later that the Bakke decision by the Supreme Court upheld this approach to diversifying the medical schools. But what was interesting is this would do no good if you didn't have the applicant pipeline. And so Dr. Potter took copies of the resolution from the faculty council, got in his car, and drove across the country, visiting schools, talking to individual student by student. And he would say, you have to apply to Harvard Medical School. Oh, they'll never take me. He said, read this. Read what they approved. This is just one of many letters. I read a lot of letters and a lot of things. This is just one. This is to the director of the Watts Neighborhood Health Center in LA from Dave Potter. He says, this year I've been heavily engaged in Harvard's new talent recruitment efforts. These are talent recruitment efforts. And I've talked with over 50 Black students interested in medicine, partly through a recruiting trip to the Deep South and partly here in Boston as a member of the Medical School Admissions Committee. So he went to Howard and Fisk and Memphis State and Jackson State and a large number of schools, and one by one generated an applicant pool, which in 1968, there were 22 minority applicants to Harvard Medical School. In 1969, there were 135. Now, the proposal talked about scholarships to make this possible. By this time, by November 1st, 277 members of the faculty had contributed collectively over $50,000 in support of the program. To put that number in perspective, that's enough for more than the 15 students' tuitions at the time. Those were the days. So here's the letter from David Potter to the dean, giving the grand total, talking about this. And you'll notice that it says, this is the first time that the faculty has been approached to support a cause, one, in this case, the faculty initiated. And I will tell you that with what's happening now in the last several years in this country, we've reinitiated a special scholarship for disadvantaged students. We call it the REACH Scholarship Program. And I have been unashamed to ask fellow faculty, classmates, alumni to support the REACH Scholarship Program. My wife and I have made the biggest donation we've ever made to anything to the REACH program. And just my favorite thing on this letter is the bottom, where it says 8 faculty members authorize payroll deductions indefinitely. So we have to find out if that's still going on. Well, here are 3 of the main protagonists, Dean Ebert, David Potter, Leon Eisenberg. And I put this up partly because Leon Eisenberg played a special role in the main event that we're celebrating today, because this is a letter that is from Leon to Bob Ebert in June 14th of 1968. And he says, Dave Potter and I have had several informal discussions. Clearly, if a knowledgeable, effective, and forceful Black physician were an assistant or associate dean and spoke to potential students in the name of Harvard Med School, this would likely have a much larger impact than if one of us were to do so. There are 2 Negro psychiatrists who seem to us to be outstanding in this regard. The first is Dr. Alvin Poussaint, who is currently an assistant professor at Tufts and who recently appeared before the Disadvantaged Student Committee. The second is Dr. Chester Pierce, who's a full professor at the University of Oklahoma. Well, the rest, as they say, is history. In the summer of 1969, Dr. Poussaint started his absolutely remarkable 50-year run of mentoring and nurturing all of us in so many different ways. And just want to say that we had an event in May celebrating Dr. Poussaint at his retirement. And you know, I think everybody in this room has a story to tell about the profound influence that Dr. Poussaint had on their life. I could tell you that I had the great privilege of being the dean of students through most of the 1990s. I was the dean of students before Nancy Oriel. And Dr. Poussaint took me under his wing and is one of my mentors. And the way he did this was in this incredibly gentle but firm way and very personalized. He would stand there in the atrium with me. He would just say, look at what's going on here. Look with a different eye. He'd say, you see at the cafe, the guy behind the counter, every time he takes the change, if it's a white student, he puts it in their hand. If it's a Black student, he puts it on the counter. He says, have you noticed that before? He said, I have news for you. The white students going by, they probably haven't noticed it. And they're busy, you know, thinking about the biochemical pathways on the test coming up. The Black students are trying to deal with their anger that this person isn't going to touch them. Now, this person may not even be aware they're doing it, he said. They may have never touched a black person. They may not, and then he said, look at how the students are sitting. And he would just one by one sort of try to explain to me what I needed to understand in order to do my job more effectively. And at that event, we unveiled this photo. It's sitting right on the back of that wall, so that forever. And actually, I just have to say that one of my other mentors, Dan Fetterman, is the other photo sitting right there. And I think, Dan loves the idea he's going to be next to you for forever, looking after the students, making sure they're doing everything all right. But at this event, what he's saying right there is he decided to share one story from 1969. And he actually talked about Leon Eisenberg calling him up and recruiting him to start this office. And what did he talk about? He said, he said, come over to MGH. Leon was the chairman of psychiatry at Mass General. And he said, we'll have lunch. I'll try to talk to you about coming to Harvard. So there was still a doctors-only dining room at Massachusetts General Hospital. And so they got in line, as he told the story, and the guy at the desk comes over to them, and he says to Alvin, you can't eat here. This is for doctors only. Now, if you know Leon, he was turning red in the face, you racist, And Dr. Poussaint said, I took Leon by the arm. And I said, Leon, are you aware that there's not one African-American doctor on the medical staff at Mass General? Are you aware of that? This guy may be making a very logical conclusion. And he started teaching Leon about structural racism. And I think that's important because this is actually the letter that Leon transmitted the report of the Commission on Relations with the Black Community to Dean Ebert. And this is now Leon's voice. He says, all of us have tolerated, if we have not created, a social structure whose outcome has been racist, whether it was consciously intended or not. To the victim, it has mattered little whether the outcome was intended. It is to outcomes and to the changing of outcomes that this report is addressed. Well, that class entered in 1969. There were, in fact, 17 students of color in the medical school class and 3 students of color in the dental school class in what became the class of 1973. And that began a movement. That began something which, since then, under Dr. Poussaint's watchful guidance, over 1,350 underrepresented students have graduated. That was about 10% of the class back then. We now have about a quarter of our class are made up of underrepresented students. But I think part of what we're talking about and going further into the future is we have to do better. We actually have to do better in our recruitment, in the pipeline programs, and trying to support students, ensure that they have those REACH scholarships so that they can take advantage of this unique opportunity. And so today is a day to celebrate all the heroes of the past, but also to redouble our efforts. And so, we're here to honor our heroes, and that includes those 64 students who were here before all of this began. It includes the faculty and staff, some of the people who are here and their family members who were the student activists at the time, the faculty members, the deans who supported them, the people who have come since, the people who gave money to those scholarship programs. We're here to celebrate many, many heroes, but most of all, we're here to celebrate Dr. Poussaint, who really, this school has a debt of gratitude to you that cannot be described in words. So I want to thank you very much for everything. One more round of applause for if you could. And I just want to make one note. When this happened in 1969, women had only been at Harvard Medical School for 20 years. They were still a tiny minority of the class. In fact, the entering class in 1969, those 17 medical students were 16 men and 1 woman. She was only the second woman in the history of Harvard Med School of color. Second woman of color. She went into psychiatry. She became a leading proponent of reducing stigma in mental illness across this country. And she's our next speaker, Shirley Marks.
glaucoma, cataract, age, all that. Okay. All right. This is a special honor to be here today, and I'm just so pleased to follow that history, because they told me I only had 10 minutes, and I'm going like, how am I going to tell all this story in 10 minutes? So they said, just take your time, but I'm a stickler for time, so bear with me on trying to get through this. And I really thought I wasn't going to get emotional until, we started talking about two people. And one of them, and I am just so regretful that I did not extend my pleasantries and extra thank yous to Dr. David Potter, because I wouldn't be standing here today without him. And so I thank you, Dean Daley and Dr. Reed and all the organizers of this program, and especially to our honoree, Dr. Alvin Poussaint. But, so I'll try to tell this story and try to stay strong as I get through this. But I am Shirley Marks. I'm a Texan, always proud of Texas. Once a Texan, always a Texan. We don't ever leave Texas. But I entered in 1969, one of the 16. But I want all of the graduates in the 1970s to stand. Quick 2 seconds. Harvard Medical and Dental, stand. And I wanted to do that because some of us are on the program and the panel, but we are truly the Trailblazers. As someone said earlier today, we didn't have that legacy, but we opened doors for others, and we're most appreciative for it. But there's still much to happen, and many of these folks in the audience have opened many doors and are true Trailblazers. There are three people that, as I think of Harvard and the Harvard family, I'm most appreciative to, and that's number one, Dr. David Potter, Dr. Alvin Poussaint, and Dr. Sherwood Frazier, who was the psychiatrist-in-chief at McLean. Dr. Potter, and at the time I didn't know he chaired the committee, but he, although chairman of this committee, came down to Morehouse. Now, most of the faculty had never heard of Spelman College. You now have. Stephanie Abrams, Stacey Abrams, you've got folks now that you know of, Marion Wright Edelman. There are many famous Spelmanites. But I took all of my science courses at Morehouse. And we were told that there would be a recruiter coming down from Harvard, and I just happened to be there that day, which really didn't mean much to me. But I am truly an example of the vision that committee had, because I had attended the summer program at Harvard, the health career summer program. So when Dr. Potter heard that, he had special interest in my being there, but I had no intention of applying to Harvard. Really wasn't absolutely sure I was going to even apply to medicine. I knew that I wanted to go in a career similar to that. So I met Dr. Potter, and when he heard my story, he became interested. Now, I believe in being in the right place at the right time, but in 1968, 67, 68, I was actually in Vienna, Austria. Charles Merrill gave scholarships to Morehouse students and Spelman students, and so I was actually in Vienna, Austria when Martin Luther King was assassinated and when Robert Kennedy was assassinated. And so the six of us were there together, feeling distraught. Even now, I still have a disconnect to that historical perspective, because we were in school in Atlanta when Burn Baby Burn and the cities were burning. And so I should have graduated in 1968. So I would have been 1968 entering medical school. But if you received the Charles Merrill Scholarship at that time, you were required to be a 5-year student.
So although I spent my senior year abroad in Vienna, I had to return to Spelman and to Morehouse for my courses to complete my 5th year. So had I not had that opportunity, I would not be standing here today. There's no question about it. So I'm most appreciative of that. I never take anything for granted. And so I'm most appreciative to Dr. Potter. And through the years, I stayed in touch, and I truly am very, very disappointed that I did not continue that. But as I tell people, sometimes I run around like a little lizard. I don't even know what I had for breakfast some days because I'm getting up there. I jokingly told someone today that, you know, I'm the class of 73, but I turned 73 Tuesday, so I don't know if there's... So even though the mind is ready and I think I'm going, sometimes I just like a bear making tracks and going nowhere, but it does happen. My mom told me that it would happen one day. But at any rate, I finished my coursework at Spelman and then was accepted to Harvard. And so, of course, if you aren't an athlete or an entertainer, no one knows anything about who was the second and the third. But I'm the second female, black female, to graduate from Harvard. The first was Dr. Mildred Jefferson. And she actually was admitted 22 years before me. Wow, that's right. Wow is right, because Harvard went that long without admitting a female, black female, to the school. Interestingly enough, Dr. Jefferson is also from East Texas, and her undergraduate school in HBCU is about this big, and is in my hometown of Tyler, Texas. She went to Texas College. And I was always trying to figure out, how did she get to Harvard from Texas College? But I later found out that her family had moved to the Boston area. But 22 years went by, and you know, so I'm the second, but the history books will certainly mention her name and not that. And one of the third, fourth, and fifth, where's Gloria? She's in here. So I guess I did something right, because I'm obviously the first Spelman graduate, but the year after me, they accepted 3 Spelman graduates. So they became the third, fourth, and fifth from Spelman. I was the first from Spelman. But I don't even know how many black females were in that class, but certainly more than in mine, because I was the only one. I am so pleased that the history now uses, or what we're seeing now uses the word disadvantage, because this morning we didn't use that term, but we were called the disadvantage back then. And so it was truly a diverse class. I don't know whether we were an experiment, not knowing what was going to work, but I think there were, 3 of us from HBCUs, 2 had PhDs, 1 or 2 Harvard College, other Ivy League. So we were truly a diverse group. And of course, my being the only female. But because I'm a twofer, that history is also important, as someone has alluded to, because the history of accepting women into Harvard Medical is not much better. And so Harvard went all those years without admitting women until 1945. Now, some of that was because of the war, but some of that was also because of biases and protests. But I don't have the time to go into that history, but that, and then, of course, Dr. Jefferson was admitted in 1947. So the history is not that great for women coming into the medical school, so we need to know a little bit about that. And then Dr. Poussaint, of course, we're going to hear much more about him today, but he was instrumental in my survival, not just being here, but my survival. He came the year we came. And so we had many jokes about that I won't share the content of, but he was brought over when we were brought over to help us through that time. And, you know, I always would say with Dr. Poussaint that you listen to him. You know, as someone has already alluded to, he was kind of quiet-spoken, gentle, but you would just sit there like he's sitting there now. That's how we would sit and kind of go like, this man has something to say. And we would just listen, and he definitely guided me through all of this, the social, cultural, the personal, all of that. And isolation was probably obviously the biggest for me because I really felt isolation. And of course, later learned that my Caucasian colleagues at the time also felt that. So sometimes when we reach out to others, we find that sometimes we're not all that dissimilar. And so I won't spend more time on that because I know the panel later on will speak to that. Then I'll move on to Dr. Sherwood Frazier, who's, those of you who are in the Harvard community know Dr. Frazier. But I stayed in the Boston area, unlike many of the students in that time. Most left. I think there were only 2 of us in my class who remained. Everybody just left Boston. Now, we can speculate as to why that was. Many have never come back, but but that's just the way it was. And so I'm real pleased that this community has done more reaching out and outreach to make people feel welcome and that it wasn't a mistake so that they will stay on. And we didn't have the privilege, as you have, to have a faculty member that looks like you or chief resident who looks like you. So don't take all that for granted because it really was a difficult time for many of us. Dr. Frazier became my supervisor and mentor. I affectionately called him my godfather. I think he knew, because I was the first black female to, not black female, first black at McLean. Although the first year was a tragic year. Now, many of you have read House of God. Steve Bergman was in our class. And, but you may not have read Mount Misery, and that was McLean. And the passing of our director of residency education was very difficult for us. But there were lessons learned for me, and that was with his passing, that you really have to have a balance to your life. You can't be the best researcher, the best clinician, the best husband and wife, the best administrator. You really have got to have a good balance, and I've tried to live that life ever since. But that time was a good time in my life. I really learned a lot at McLean, and my last year there, I did go to the School of Public Health and got a Master's of Public Health here at Harvard as well. The other Spelman, when I said School of Public Health, it made me remember that I had forgotten to reference Dr. Deborah Prothero-Stith, who many of you know. Deborah was also from East Texas, so it must be in the water. I don't know. We just eat fresh food and drink good water, but she also grew up about 50 miles from where I'm from in Marshall, Texas, and Dr. Jefferson grew up in Pittsburgh, Texas, about 50 miles from where I grew up in Tyler, and she went to Spelman. Deborah did, and then on to the rest is history. You know of her with Harvard and the School of Public Health, and she's now the dean out at Charles Drew. So I see her quite often. I just want to sum up a little bit about my life since then. I've never been a great researcher. I've never written books. I've just been a darn good clinician and diagnostician, and I'm proud of it. And so most Texans return to Texas, and so that's what I did after finishing my residency. Returned to Texas, and I was a practicing psychiatrist in the Houston area. So I spent 25 years in solo and group practice and retired from the VA. Now, I'd started at the VA right after the Vietnam War, and before post-traumatic stress disorder was even a diagnosis. This is how old I am. But, you know, it was called all kinds of things back in the day. And so that was a special time. And then I don't know whether it was the trauma recovery experience of those veterans, but I went on to found a women's program in the city, well-known trauma recovery program for women. And I did an 11-year stint as a television personality in Houston. So many people meet me now, are you still on television? No, I'm not. But that was also a wonderful experience for me. And I've been retired officially since 2010, working only just a few months for travel. But in the past year, I was requested to come out of retirement to be the mental health medical director for correctional managed care. So I am the mental health medical director of a 550-bed prison hospital. And it is truly what you hear on TV, that the criminal justice system takes care of the majority of our mental health patients. It is unreal how sick some of the folks are who are incarcerated. And so I think we provide good services, but if anyone wants to really look at the evolution of an illness nowadays, come to a prison hospital, because you hardly see it nowadays with short hospital stays. But I'm gonna get off that bandwagon because I'll get on that real fast. But I'm gonna stop, and hopefully I'll have more time to kind of tell the rest of my story as the panelists speak and as we get into Q&A session. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, students, fellow alumni, faculty, and staff. I'm Mary Tate, and I am from the class of 2018. It is such an honor to stand before you today and to share a few words about the incredible legacy of Dr. Alvin Poussaint. I cannot, however, speak about Dr. Poussaint's work here at Harvard Medical School without reminding you of his life and his accomplishments prior to being recruited to the faculty here. Growing up in East Harlem, Dr. Poussaint was unfamiliar with specialized science and math high schools in New York City until a music teacher pulled him aside and encouraged him to take an entrance exam to a magnet school, which ultimately afforded him the opportunity to attend Stuyvesant High School, an experience that, in his own words, shaped his whole future. Much like your music teacher did for you, Dr. Poussaint, you have opened my eyes and the eyes of many people sitting in this room to opportunities that have shaped our lives and will go on to shape our future. Dr. Poussaint went on to Columbia for college and Cornell for medical school, where he was the only African American in his graduating class. When asked about surviving amid the many challenges that go along with being the only one, Dr. Poussaint once said, "What propelled me is that I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be successful, and I kept my eyes on the prize." We are all so grateful that you did just that. You have been the role model to so many of us to help us believe in our ability to succeed. And through your efforts, you have created a culture of diversity at Harvard Medical School that made it possible for us never to bear the burden of being the only one. After completing a residency at UCLA in psychiatry, Dr. Poussaint answered the call to service and worked as a Southern Field Director of the Medicine Committee for Human Rights in Jackson, Mississippi. In addition to providing medical care for civil rights workers on the marches, Dr. Poussaint worked to help desegregate health facilities in the South. Along with his team of nurses and volunteers, Dr. Poussaint collected the narratives of patients receiving care in segregated hospitals and those individuals who were turned away due to the color of their skin in Mississippi, in Alabama, and Louisiana. He raised the voices of people of color in the South and flooded the government with their stories. His efforts sparked the mobilization of investigators to go throughout the South and document and subsequently enforce the law set forth by the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Unsurprisingly, Dr. Poussaint continued his work of lifting up the voice of the minority student. Throughout his time at Harvard, he has continued to find ways to allow students underrepresented in medicine to have a voice and have access to the leadership of Harvard Medical School. Whether through the Multicultural Affairs Committee, the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, student rallies, demonstrations, or protests, you have consistently helped us express ourselves and to shift the culture toward a more inclusive place. There is no doubt that your work to change the culture here was one that was hard fought over many years. While there was the occasional student, as we've learned, 64 students, that attended HMS prior to Dr. Poussaint's arrival, the social climate of the 1960s and the assassination of Dr. King in 1968 as we've learned today, prompted nearly 300 Harvard students to sign a petition to implore the school to comprehensively review its ability to train Black physicians and also assess our relationship with the Black community in Boston. Given this desire for change and advocates that we've heard so much about, like Dr. Leon Eisenberg and Dr. Harold Amos, the first full professor at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Poussaint was recruited to join the faculty in 1969. As we have learned at his time of arrival, African-American enrollment was less than 1%. Dr. Poussaint was charged with heavily recruiting and then finding a way to support those students when they came, like Dr. Marx. He had quite the uphill battle, as there remained faculty who shared in public venues like the New England Journal of Medicine that while HMS had always been #1 in the nation, it was in danger of slipping because minorities were coming in. They worried that the presence of minorities would bring down the academic rigor and the value of the Harvard diploma. All of us here today are proof that they could not have been more wrong. It is indeed the diversity of Harvard Medical School that makes us excellent. While initially the focus had been on increasing Black representation, under Dr. Poussaint's leadership, that quickly expanded to working to recruit applicants from other underrepresented groups in medicine. Today, 22% of the student body identify as from groups underrepresented in medicine. Dr. Poussaint, we cannot thank you enough for your 50 years of service. When I reflect on what your legacy will be, I think of the many people whose lives you've changed. I look across this room today, and I see your legacy. I think of the nearly 1,400 students that have walked these halls that you have mentored. I consider that among those 1,400 students, many have gone on to become deans of medical schools, deans for students, department chairs, division heads, politicians, and leaders in community and global health. Further still, I think of those former students of yours who are pillars in their community, excellent diagnosticians, and mentors to the next generation of underrepresented minorities. Your legacy lives on. I think of Dr. Nancy Oriel, former dean for students, former division head of obstetric anesthesia, and pioneer of the walking epidural. Dr. Poussaint, your legacy lives on. I think of Dr. Nual Noor, MacArthur genius and trailblazer in the care of circumcised women. Your legacy lives on. I think of Dr. Alistair Martin, faculty at the Center for Social Justice and Health Equity at MGH, and founder of the Get Wavered campaign, a strong advocate for increasing medication therapy for opioid addiction. Your legacy lives on. Dr. Henri Ford, dean of the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, an innovator in pediatric surgery. Your legacy lives on. Dr. Raul Ruiz, representative for the 36th Congressional District of California, a politician committed to quality, affordable health care. Your legacy lives on. Dr. Valerie Rice, president and dean of Morehouse School of Medicine and the first woman to lead a freestanding medical institution. Your legacy lives on. Dr. Fidencio Saldana, dean for students, former faculty assistant dean for student affairs in ORMA, and the person who has made me and so many others feel confident that we belong. Your legacy lives on. I think of Dr. Elam Avakame, Dr. Sarah Deliska, Dr. Jennifer Beto, and Dr. Nelyanj Conchu, classmates of mine, with incredible futures in pediatrics, obstetrics, orthopedics, and general surgery that are still ahead of them, but who have already made a difference in the lives of the countless students they've mentored. Dr. Poussaint, your legacy lives on. Your legacy will be lived out every day in the work that we do and the people that we impact. Thank you for giving us an excellent example of what we can strive toward every single day. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jason Outlaw, class of 2017, the Harvard School of Dental Medicine and PhD in true Harvard fashion, who is here to present a gift to ORMA on behalf of Dr. Poussaint.
So I'm pleased to present this handmade commemorative stained glass award to Dr. Poussaint. The plaque reads, "Celebrating 50 years of diversity, inclusion, and support." This one-of-a-kind handmade stained glass window will reside in the OMRA in the Student Affairs Office. Thank you, Dr. Poussaint, for nurturing generations of students here at Harvard School of Dental Medicine, Harvard Medical School, and across the globe. Your tectonic impact will continue to reverberate long into the future. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fidencio Saldana. I'm the Dean for Students and currently the Interim Director of the Office of Recruitment and Multicultural Affairs and former Faculty Assistant Dean for Students under Dr. Poussaint. So we know stories are very powerful. They tell us about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And all of us can likely share a story of how Dr. Poussaint has impacted our lives. And I feel very privileged to moderate a panel of alumni who will share some of those stories from the very beginning to almost present day. So I'd like to invite our distinguished alumni to come and join us here at the front panel. So our panelists are listed up on the slide, and we'll have them introduce themselves as we call upon them to share their story of how Dr. Poussaint has impacted their lives. So first, I'd like to start with Dr. Matthew Plummer. We're going to go back to that class that started in '69 and graduated in '73. Dr. Plummer is a graduate of the Harvard School of Dental Medicine, class of 1973. Dr. Plummer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm one of those Texans that Shirley Marks Brown was talking about. The year was 1968. America was experiencing social and political turmoil. The country seemed to be having a nervous breakdown with one traumatic event followed by another. In April, Martin Luther King was assassinated. 130 cities burned. In June, Robert Kennedy, the political hope of change, was assassinated. Violent protests against the unpopular Vietnam War became a nightly TV event. The rise of the angry and combative Black Power movement began to manifest itself in communities of color across the United States. And two Black sprinters gave the Black Power salute at the Mexico City Olympics. Some believe that these cultural and political upheavals had reached a critical mass and would surely undermine America's social order. It was during these uncertain and tumultuous times that I entered Harvard as one of the first Black students who was an unknowing participant in Harvard's first attempt at meaningful diversity. For Harvard, it was a bold and courageous undertaking. Of my countless interactions with Dr. Poussaint during my tenure at Harvard Medical and Dental School, there were two instances where my relationship with him was instrumental in me completing my academic career. The first occurred during the second week on campus. It was lunchtime, and I was at my locker. changing books in preparation for afternoon classes. I was approached by several Black first-year medical students. Their facial expressions telegraphed emotional stress and fear. They said that they had heard from 2 other students that our chemistry professors were overheard referring to us as 16 Black Panthers. For those of you who are younger, I'm not referring to the movie. The Black Panther Party was a militant political organization founded in the late 60s. The party's original purpose was to patrol Black neighborhoods to protect them from acts of police brutality. As we stood in front of my locker, we were all having painful flashbacks of our Southern experience: segregation, discrimination, racism, political and economic retaliation. We thought that Harvard would be different. I was ready to go home. After a quick huddle with this mild-mannered, soft-spoken man, Dr. Poussaint assured us that everything would be fine and that we would be treated respectfully and fairly. We desperately needed that reassurance. The second incident occurred during my second school year. My family and I had experienced a family tragedy. Dr. Poussaint's counseling was fundamental to my emotional and psychological recovery and healing. Dr. Poussaint was also with us when we tried to increase the number of Hispanic students. Thank you, Dr. Poussaint. I'm sorry. I don't know how you did it, Dr. Poussaint. I don't know how you manage your own life, family, academic responsibilities, and simultaneously was always there for us, always there for us, always providing excellent counseling, love, encouragement, hope, support, and a receptive heart. You and only you carried the weight of all of us on your 2 shoulders. That was miraculous. Harvard Medical School, thank you for sharing Dr. Poussaint with us, because diversity at Harvard Medical School is Dr. Poussaint's baby, and your baby is now 50 years old. It is our duty and responsibility to ensure that your legacy and unrelenting push to foster diversity at Harvard Medical and Dental Schools continues as you transition your life into something a little bit less stressful. Thank you, Harvard Medical School, for sharing Dr. Poussaint with us. Finally, while the medical school had Dr. Poussaint, the dental school had Dean Paul Goldhaber and Dr. James Mulvihill. While Dean Goldhaber ensured appropriate resources were available, Dr. James Mulvihill was our diversity champion, and his contributions to the dental school's 50 years of diversity must be acknowledged. He cultivated an atmosphere at the dental school that made us feel welcome and part of the school community. I would like to thank Dr. Mulvihill for his commitment to diversity at the dental school. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Plummer. I'd next like to invite Dr. Emilio Carrillo, class of 1976, to give his perspective a little bit on Dr. Poussaint's role in helping our Latino students in the 1970s.
I remember walking into the quadrangle. I was a senior at Columbia College. What am I doing here? I was a community activist, very involved in the squatter movement, housing movement, Columbia, school senator, always looking for how can we move our community forward? How can we move the Latino community forward? And here I was at Harvard. What am I doing here? I walked in through the quadrangle and walked into Building A, which is the centerpiece. And, you know, I had no idea who I was going to see. I had no idea who was going to speak with me. Doors open, and I see Dr. Poussaint. And I said, wow. I mean, a black man, was sitting there to talk to me, to see who I was, to see whether I had a role in this school. Talking with him was so special, seeing him, children of immigrant, Columbia College, marching with Martin Luther King, Selma, a man of his principles, here in a place, a tower of ivory. And he opened up to me with his smile, his smiling face, made me feel comfortable, made me feel wanted. And he and I started talking about health policy. And, you know, I always thought it was just, they were talking to me about biochemistry, health policy, and the community, and improving healthcare. And I just fell in love with him the minute I met him. It's been a long, long time I've been in love with you. Sorry, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. You know, that first year was really tough. It was so hard. Now, here I am, an immigrant, coming from Columbia, a great school. But, you know, the other students were the sons and daughters of deans, the sons and daughters of chairmen of various different departments, heads of hospitals, TV personalities. I mean, there was all kinds of, like, very, very well-schooled people who went to Oxford and went and spent time in other countries. And here I was, a kid who had to work for his every meal. And it was people like Dr. Beckwith, who's sitting right there. It was people like Leon Eisenberg, who is truly a giant, truly, truly a giant. Dr. Potter, who was the kindest man you could imagine. Those of you that know him know that. Who basically, they were our angels. They took us by the hand. They let us know that we were not stupid, that we were smart, that even though we don't have 3 degrees in biochemistry, that we could do the curriculum, that science was fun, and that we could master the science. That was amazing. I mean, these people did so much for us. And all along, it was Dr. Poussaint who was steadily, quietly, behind the scenes, making sure that myself and the other students who were first and just as shocked as I was in that environment, he was there looking out for us constantly. So Dr. Poussaint not only supported the person, he basically created the ability for change. He created the conditions where the students that he recruited were going to go out there and do what he believed in, which is equity, diversity, engagement with people of color, people in the communities. We went on to do that. Thanks to him, you can't sail a boat without wind, okay? You cannot sail a boat, no matter how good you are, how committed you are. And we got there wanting to change the world, change medical schools, change Harvard. And he was there, he was the wind quietly behind our wings. He was helping us do what we had to do. And I'm going to show a slide of how he helped us basically launch something bigger than us, bigger than Boston, bigger than Massachusetts, the whole country. Okay, I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm technically very bad. my kids can say that. Okay. All right, so when we were there, we basically felt alone. And we realized, the Latino students, we realized that the only way to survive was to reproduce, and not physiologically, but to reproduce, to have more, to bring more of us to this environment. And we knew that we had to retain, we had to survive. I mean, we had our Eisenbergs and Beckwiths and Potters, but we needed a lot more to survive. So we started an organization. We started an organization, Boricua Health Organization. Now, Boricua, back then, many, many decades ago, the Northeast was Puerto Rican in terms of Latinos. It was Puerto Rican, and Boricua is the name that basically brings people together around that identity. So we started this organization, and Dr. Poussaint is the one that gave us that little corner office in Louis Pasteur, in 107 Avenue Louis Pasteur, where we now had a place. We now had an identity. We had a reality. We started our organization. And guess what? He helped us get a recruiter. My goodness. A recruiter who basically worked with his office and the rest of the Harvard community to go out and recruit. So, you know, in my year, there was just a few Latinos, just 2 from the East Coast and about 5 from the West Coast. And the following year, it just multiplied, thanks to the efforts that he did behind just the wind behind our sails, letting us do this. We not only did it in Harvard, we went to BU, we went to Tufts, we went to New York, and as you would have it, this organization grew with a very simple premise that to motivate and assist students to get into medical school and to orient them so that once they're in medical school, they don't get, as we used to say, Harvardized, meaning that they, like Dr. Poussaint, maintain their core principles and their commitment. They also allowed us to come together and speak our minds, and speak our minds we did. We were very impatient, and Dr. Poussaint was incredibly helpful and supportive, as was Dr. Eisenberg. Dr. Eisenberg took interest in my activism and the things, you know, the sitting in Dr. Ebert's office, the things that really now is grating that we did those things. Remember, we're children of the 60s. Children of the 60s. And basically, he was there to guide us, and he was there to, as we exploded, we had our class, which was really, I think, I don't know the numbers, but we were probably one of the first big class of Latinos and black students. It was the first big class. And we were basically into the chemistry, into the physiology, but we said, hey, we gotta have something about our communities. We gotta have something about social medicine. We gotta have something about the culture, the cross-cultural. We need that, and finally we were gonna have a day where we would have some speakers to talk to us about social medicine. And we were so disappointed. I'm not going to go into the details, but it was horrible. And the students, one by one, stood up, said their mind, and they all walked out. I mean, I don't know whether this ever happened before Harvard Medical School, but we did. But Dr. Poussaint was there to talk to us, to give us advice. With Dr. Leon Eisenberg, he helped us have our own course that basically brought in experts from around the country in epidemiology, in cross-cultural health, in biomedicine for the communities. And he not only allowed us to do these things, but he allowed us to survive, to be able to do these things in a way that maintains your sanity and maintains your status as a professional and a student. So I really want to thank Dr. Poussaint out of the bottom of my heart because something that I learned many years later, I didn't realize it then, that in his own quiet manner, he was doing so much and he was showing us how to stand up to power. He was showing us how to do it in a way that would bring us forward, get us closer to the prize, but not burn ourselves out. And for that, I have to give you many thanks. And the thousands of students, Latino students, now this organization merged with a Midwest Organization of Latinos, a Southwest, and now it's the National Latino Medical Association, which has touched over the years thousands of Latino students. Thank you, Dr. Poussaint.
Thanks very much, Dr. Carrillo. In Mary Tate's comments, she mentioned a piece in the New England Journal that wasn't very complimentary to diversity at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Woodrow Myers, class of '77, was at Harvard Medical School while that happened, and he will offer some reflections.
Hi, I'm Woody Myers, and I'm a proud member of the class of 1977. And today I'm going to give you my 5-minute lecture on the biology of imprinting. Imprinting, as you will remember, is phase-sensitive learning occurring at a particular age or stage in life that is rapidly and apparently independent of the consequences of behavior. I am a product of this medical school, and I am a product of the imprinting of Alvin Poussaint. This was my official picture when I applied to medical school. How I got in with that official picture, I still to this day do not know. Before Alvin became the Associate Dean of Student Affairs, he had done a lot of different things, as I think many of you in the room know. One of the things was he was the nation's leader in thinking on diversification in education. And I went back and I dug up this Select Committee on Equal Educational Opportunity Senate hearing back in 1971, what students perceived. This was the Hesburgh Commission. Alvin commented on it, and one of the things that just struck me, that this was in 1971, now almost 50 years ago, it creates particular hardships for these individuals. And in this case, he's talking about Negroes or Mexican Americans at any white school where our presence made us tokens. The severe pressure on minority students in such schools is greatly eased if they represent a good percentage of the student body. In this way, they can gain much psychological support through their own organizations and social clubs. And that was so, so true here at HMS. If it hadn't been for that understanding, I'm sure I would not have made it through this school. We all know that as a result of this and many other things that Alvin did, he was recruited to the position of Associate Dean of Student Affairs. We've heard that story. But the story that I think it's important to talk about from my perspective today, the story that is most meaningful to me, is a story that occurs in the sophomore year that I was here. This is from the New England Journal of Medicine, May 13, 1976, a sounding board on academic standards in medical school. The person on the right is a full professor of the Harvard Medical School, Bernard, microbiologists, who are in a position to screen for aptitude and competence in medicine, have a grave moral responsibility. I've read this thing a dozen times, and I see all throughout the dog whistles, 1970s versions that we see so many different places today. He goes on to talk about the fact that faculty should also stretch the criteria, but how far faculty should go in stretching their criteria for passing students is another matter. If a board licensing airline pilots allowed extraneous considerations to interfere with objectivity, it would be considered criminal. In other words, he was suggesting that we were airline pilots akin to those who flunked landing of the airplane. This was my sophomore year. This was a full professor at our medical school, and he was talking about me. He went on to say, our primary obligation is to protect the public interest in an area in which the public cannot protect itself. So he needed to protect the public from me, his student at HMS. Well, as you might imagine, I mean, this is our sophomore year. We're trying to pass our classes. We're getting ready to go into the clinics. And then this thing appears. And as students, the Black Health Organization, all the other organizations, we had to figure out what were we going to do? How are we going to respond? We had a big crowd of folks right outside of Building A. There were news cameras there. This is the article that appeared in the next day's Boston Globe. And as you can see, a number of us in our white coats called attention to the fact that this was inappropriate, it was wrong, and it did not represent the education that we were receiving. It did not represent the care that we were going to give our patients. I remember how Poussaint said,
He got him told, didn't he?
that's what I remember. But most importantly for me, was not exactly what he said, but how he said it. We were out there in our little white coats and we were being polite. We were trying to figure out what to say and what to do. And then Alvin came out and blew us all away. And I remember that as having been...
Tired and sick and tired?
That's right.
I'm tired and sick and tired.
He said it. And that is what we had wasted that opportunity as students. I remember that we learned a lot of other things around that time as well. One of them was the art of negotiation. I don't know if Johnson Lightfoot remembers, but we went to see the president of the university because we wanted him to take action as well. We debated whether we should ask for his resignation, but as a full faculty member, we thought that was a stretch. Tenured at that, right? We then said, well, maybe what we'll go for is censure. Yeah, that's it. We'll go for censure. Being prepared, however, to accept full rebuke as a compromise for censure. I remember we were in the cafeteria with Derek Bach. Derek Bach lit a cigarette. So Johnson and I looked at each other, and we lit a cigarette. It was my first major negotiation right here at Harvard. It was not one of the classes that was in the curriculum in those days, but it was one of the most important lessons that I learned because in July of this year, I announced my candidacy for governor of the state of Indiana. After having spent about 50 years remembering what Alvin taught me that day and then imitating it and repeating it and imitating it and repeating it, just like those little ducks that you saw on slide number 1. So I just want to say thank you to my professor, my big duck, Alvin Poussaint, who I have imitated in so many ways. One of the things I have tried to do is to pass it on to those little ducklings that now are walking behind me, and I'm sure that many of those of you in the room are doing exactly the same thing. But it's a hard, hard act to follow, because now we've got before us a guy who's got 50-plus years on us during the hardest times that this country has ever gone through, with one of the most difficult challenges it's ever had, and that's dealing with fairness and equity and racial discrimination. Alvin, you have been and will always be the leader as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Myers. I am now going to turn the podium over to Dr. Nancy Oriel.
Associate Dean of Student Affairs at Harvard Medical School, lifelong public servant, and my mentor and friend, Dr. Alvin Poussaint. Dr. Poussaint's career has been one of passion and service. During the Civil War, and his experience, insight, and intellect have been requested by the FBI, the White House, and the Department of Health. And one of the biggest blessings of my life is that our paths crossed when I was a student at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Poussaint believed in me and supported me in my studies and my student advocacies. Dr. Poussaint embraced me and my approach to learning. He encouraged me and guided my passion and energy, and he defended me from those who wanted me to think that I didn't belong there. Dr. Alvin Poussaint is one of the reasons why I'm standing up here today as a physician and congressman standing up for health and social justice. I want to wish him well in his retirement and celebrate his
ask him how Dr. Poussaint contributed to your sense of belonging here at Harvard Medical School.
So you have to meet Dr. Poussaint. He'll help you sort of decide this. And I hadn't had a individual conversation with you yet, but there are lots of parties during this weekend, and he was right there with all the students, and I remember seeing him out there on the floor dancing, and I thought, this guy seems all right. And I remember meeting you and always feeling like you had just this very calm way of stating things that I had never heard a faculty member, a professor, or teacher say before. Just the truth about what students are feeling like, the biases that we experience, the racism that we experience. And you just saying it out loud, it just stunned me, shocked me that someone would say that, because all through college and up until that point, I'd never heard anybody in a leadership role talk like that. And the way that you made us feel like, and made me feel like, it's okay to say those things and actually to advocate on behalf of that, really is the reason why I felt comfortable coming here and felt like I would be supported in doing this. I feel like you sort of affected me in three ways. This interpersonal way of us having meetings and connecting. Also, your willingness to connect me throughout the Harvard community and the Boston community in terms of trying to achieve the things I wanted to achieve. And really importantly, you created a culture around the medical area that we all felt like we were in this together, and that we needed to support each other. And I felt that every day around all the colleagues and the friends that I've been able to have had the pleasure to work with. One of the things that I was always so interested in is promoting Indigenous health. That's not a topic that you hear a lot about in the Boston area. And I was very worried that I wouldn't be able to really achieve or do what I wanted to do in Boston, with a dream in mind about what we wanted to do. So none of that would have been possible without you. And you have created hundreds of careers for American Indian college students who are now health professionals, physicians, and scientists around the country. And I think that is in large part because of the support that you put into into us when we were just young students. And I can't thank you enough for the work that you've done in supporting us in our work around Indigenous health. I speak for Raul and Dan Kalak and others who really benefited greatly from you. So I thank you for being such a wonderful mentor over these many.
And Uche, you were here in the early 2000s, so our new century, but your connection to HMS began long before that, I believe. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Thank you, Fidencio, and I'm honored to be part of this, this historical program today, especially honoring Dr. Poussaint, and I'd like to start my remarks off with this picture. And this picture actually represents Dr. Poussaint's legacy, because in this picture is our mother, Dr. Dale Blackstock, class of '76. And our mother is not here today because she passed away at only 47 years old from acute myelogenous leukemia. But you know, she was a tremendous inspiration to my sister, Dr. Oni Blackstock, who's also class of 2005. One of the early classes that benefited from Dr. Poussaint's diversity efforts. She had a very challenging life. She overcame poverty, about a pipeline program that she was in that brought her to Harvard Medical School. And she talks about, during my last 2 summers in college, I also got involved with the Harvard Health Career Summer Program, HCSP, a program for minorities interested in health fields that permitted us to take courses at Harvard. After my experience with HCSP, I was confident enough to apply to medical school. Having done well at Brooklyn College and on my MCAT, I got an early acceptance to Harvard Medical School. And she also talks about, you know, the experience of attending Harvard. She said medical school was a real culture shock. She was somewhat intimidated by the backgrounds of many of my peers. Most of the students came from well-to-do families, including many of the Black students. Nurse degree after raising 6 children. I was very proud of her. She had attended school full-time, worked full-time, taken care of the family, and gotten off of welfare. And so this is the, you know, your legacy, Dr. Poussaint, that she was here at HMS and that she graduated and that she returned to her community back in Brooklyn, New York, to serve the people, to take care of them, to lead local organizations of Black physicians, and to really make a difference. And obviously, she inspired both Oni and myself to become physicians. This is not Dr. Poussaint. This is our father. But while we were here, I knew that when I arrived on campus, one, I was very thankful to Dr. Poussaint for his advocacy and my acceptance to Harvard Medical School. But I knew also that I was home because your name was in our household for a very long time. And I knew that when we came to your office, we felt tremendous amount of support and that we knew that we belonged here. And I also just wanted to thank Rosa Solar. Thank you so much for everything that you did for us while we were here. And also Beverly Turner, who was also ORMA staff, but couldn't be here today. She was also really everyone's critical factors to my success and that of my peers. I'm forever indebted to Dr. Poussaint for your unwavering support, your advocacy, and your mentorship. And this is us recently, a few months ago. So thank you for your mentoring, your diversity efforts here at HMS, your presence, your mere presence in the academy. We all would not be here without you and your commitment to us. It's a heavy blow, and many of our marginalized get it to you. Thank you.
One more round of applause for our panelists, and we'll ask them to take their seats again. And now I'd actually like to invite Dr. Poussaint.
Not much of a talk, just greetings. My daughter told me I should just get up and tell some funny stories and some jokes and sit down. Anyway, this has been a wonderful occasion, and I thank everyone for coming. It's just a really pleasure and flattering to see so many of you from many parts of the country turn out for this celebration. I'm very gratified by that. I will tell a funny story. As you get older, and I'm older like Bruce Dornoff is older, a lot of those, you know you're in trouble. And at Harvard Medical School, they have a lot of professors with Lifetime Achievement Awards. You walk into a committee meeting, and half of the room is sleeping. So I'm glad to be here. Your priorities, of course, change as you get older, and that's expected. First, you're kind of looking at going to your next great lecture and learning something new. As you get older, your priorities change to where the first bathroom is. I want to thank in my own life, and also to Dr. Tina Young-Poussaint. You're Tina Young-Poussaint? Yeah. Things happen to you. Anyway. Thank her and my family for help keeping me going. You know, the first students who came to Harvard Medical School 50 years ago were a very special group. And one of the first things that happened that's been part of my own concepts and organizing principles, they got together soon after they arrived and said their jobs should not be, these are mostly the black students, should not be competing with each other, that their job should be to help each other. Instead, they decided they wanted to support each other, that their mission and job would be to make sure all of them graduated. They all graduated. And as you've seen from some of the slides and the presentations, that throughout the ups and downs here, and there have been many downs and many ups as well, students were remarkable and major support that contribute to the growth and expansion of the practice and concepts of diversity at HMS. The students led the way in talking about healthcare disparities and diversity before it was fashionable. This was going on for many, many decades. And they also continue to support the school in steering their support for affirmative action even as challenges arose. I want to particularly thank also the admissions committees. The admissions committees admitted the students, and they were somewhat independent. I influenced them to some extent, but sometimes I didn't. But because they had a commitment to having a diversified, they continued the tradition and the efforts over these past 50 years, even as the deans of admissions have changed and shifted. The medical school students have really changed the culture of Harvard Medical School, and you should appreciate that. It was a very white place when I came here. Is it still? No, but there was kind of a monolithic, narrow kind of cultural expression. And I think the black students and Latino students changed that, and the Native American students, making Harvard a more enriched environment that supported and contributed to the education not only of the underrepresented students, but also to the majority students as well. And I think nationally that many of our graduates, a host of them, have gone around the country and even abroad and changed the practices in medicine and opened the doors to solving healthcare disparities issues and providing access particularly to marginalized populations. It's been a very gratifying experience to see so many of you here today. and you continue to be a positive force for change as you face continued challenges that will not disappear and are ever present. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Burnett Bowie, for that awesome presentation, and we look forward to extending all the great research that we've done and what we discovered. So my name is LaShira Nolan, but my friends call me Lash. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, and I'm a first-year medical student, and I'm serving as our 2023 class president.
My name is Jalen Benson. I'm from Pensacola, Florida, and I'm serving as the 2023 SMMA president. And so as we've seen today, from looking around this room and seeing the work done by Dr. Poussaint, there's been tireless efforts here at HMS to help center diversity and change what it looks like. And so as we take a look here, this is the photo from the graduation of the class of 2019. Literally front and center are Black and brown bodies that become part of the fabric of what it means to be a student here at HMS. As we've heard today, and as we're going to show you, that was not always the case here at HMS, and takes tireless effort both then and now to make that continue to happen.
Yes, and Jalen and I believe that it's important to understand where we've come from to understand where we're going and where we are. So therefore, we decided to look back to 1950s when we saw Jim Crow laws really plaguing Black communities in the South. In those communities, they decided to fled to the North and the West in search of opportunities. But then, when they arrived during the Great Migration, they saw that they didn't have access to institutions like Harvard University and Harvard Medical School. And we were only able to identify in this class photo that we got from the Countway Library of Medicine only one student of color in the class of 1955. Beyond that, in the 60s, we saw many of these communities of oppressed identities really fighting during the civil rights movements. Here we have Dolores Huerta, who fought with Cesar Chavez during the Delano grape strike of 1965. And she really was advocating for this idea of collective bargaining and workers' rights. In the photo in the middle, we see the civil rights movement that we all know so well, where people were fighting for access to education and equal pay and equal opportunity here in the United States. And lastly, which is very important, today we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of diversity and inclusion here at HMS, but this year will also be the 50th anniversary of when Native Americans occupied Alcatraz Island in the San Francisco Bay, demanding that they had access to education and access to rights that was basically their land that was taken from them. So all of these things were going on in the 1960s. But at the beginning of this, in the class of 1962, we still didn't really see any movement. And we saw that even though all of this advocacy was happening on the outside of the walls of HMS, we still saw only one student of color that we were able to identify in the class of 1962. And as others have expressed, it was not until the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in 1968 that people really started to wake up and see that we truly could be better together. And here at HMS, the pioneer that really led these efforts was Dr. Alvin Poussaint. And I'm so proud to say that I was a product of one of his programs that he started here when he was the leader of ORMA, the pre-matriculation Poussaint Summer Program. And with that opportunity, I was able to gain exposure to oncology and gain friends who truly have become my support system during my first year here at Harvard Medical School. And I just want to say thank you so much, because if it weren't for you, I'm sure that many of us in this room today would not be here. And because of your efforts, we went from only having one student of color to a 15-fold increase of students of color here at HMS. And it's been such an honor to hear from all of you today. And it's almost a surreal moment to see all of these superheroes be here with us today.
And as we expected here, and what we always knew, is that given the opportunity and the catalyst of Harvard Medical School, our graduates here have thrived. This is just a snapshot of some of the places that you can see our Harvard graduates, URM graduates across the country. If you're looking in any academic medical center, you're looking in any sector of biotechnology, any healthcare startup space, you are seeing our graduate here. We have deans of medical schools, astronauts, CEOs, founders of programs. When given the chance here at HMS, as you all knew was possible, and as Dr. Poussaint saw in all of us, we would excel and go forward to be some of the best of medicine and to be pioneers. Not only that, based on the data from the survey, we can see that every year we pursued more opportunities here at Harvard from a variety of other degrees, from MPPs and MBAs and Master of Public Health. What the graduates are saying, what you all have said, is we're not only happy with being a doctor, we want to be so much more within medicine, and you continue to fight to get those tools. And within medicine, you also pursued your MD PhDs, showing that here at HMS, we are pursuing the forefront of clinical and cutting-edge medicine research, and that our students here and all of you have been an incredible part of that. And so we thank you for that. And as we look towards the future, we know there's still so much work to be done, and things are changing here at HMS. You can now see here HMS's diversity statement, which reads, "We acknowledge the strengths and weaknesses of our history and actively promote social justice, challenge discrimination, and address disparities and inequities." This is only possible because of tireless work. People like Dr. Poussaint and Dr. Joan Reed have helped make this central to what Harvard Medical School now is. However, this is not over. We continue as students to work hard and as faculty to push to advance diversity here at HMS and as we spread around the U.S.
Yes, and while we are very proud of where we have come from and where we are today, we know that the work is just beginning. And we know that we are capable of continuing to push the forefront of medicine to become a more equitable place for communities all across the nation because of how you all have pioneered this track for us to follow. So we want to say thank you, and we are looking forward to showing the world that we are, in fact, better together.
Thanks very much to Dr. Sherry Burnett-Bowie and to Lash and Jalen for a wonderful presentation. We'll pop the slides up. So it is my job to provide brief comments on the future of ORMA. As we discussed at the talk at 12, in the future, ORMA plans to continue to recruit and retain students that are underrepresented in medicine, making Harvard a welcoming place for them to thrive. We're going to continue to support our other ethnic affinity groups, as well as our LGBTQ students, and also provide an environment where we can educate the entire community about things such as bias, microaggression, and the systemic racism that Uche spoke about earlier. Dr. Poussaint left the office in amazing shape. So this is our wonderful staff. You met Dr. Sherry Burnett-Bowie already, and I serve as interim director, but the heart and soul are our staff. We actually have more staff in ORMA than we've ever had before. Jessica Hallam is our outreach director to our LGBTQ students. Barbara Sweeney likely does every single job in ORMA as our program director, and Christopher De La Cerda is our new addition in ORMA who directs recruitment and outreach. I'm not sure how Dr. Poussaint did it. I think again in George and Ed's ear, I was in ORMA myself, and now I have been populated as the Dean for Students as an extension and representative of ORMA, where my heart has always been. And Rosa Soler as well was in ORMA, and now she's Director of Student Affairs. So I think, I don't know what Dr. Poussaint's doing, but we're slowly taking over the entire medical school, which is not a bad thing. But the future is bright really for two reasons, and the first really is what you just saw with Lash and Jalen. It's because of our students. Each year we recruit an incredible group of students that truly wants to make a difference in the world. They are bright, motivated, compassionate, and are ready to take on any challenge that comes their way. But really the second reason why the future of ORMA is bright is because Dr. Poussaint has taught us never to rest on our laurels, and always to continue to fight for what is right. And again, it's the students that have best given us the example of how we should be doing this. Our students are not afraid to speak up or to advocate. Our students stand with one another in support of what is right. They look to educate others so that more can join the fight. They are socially conscious. They are very well aware of what's going on in the world around them and how it relates to their careers in medicine. They understand that this is not just about one group, but it really involves our entire community. And if we ever need a little bit of inspiration to make sure that we stay to mission, all we need to do is walk outside to the TMEC atrium and glance out at the portrait of the very first African-American male to be featured in this space. So it is very bright, thanks to you. We know you'll always be watching over us. There's, I think, a little secret camera that you put in there to make sure that we do what's right. But thank you, Dr. Poussaint. I'd now like to turn it over to Dean Joan Reed.
Thank you. This has been such a wonderful day of celebration and a time of celebration. I am what's between you and Dean Daley, so I'm going to try to move this along because this is a time for us to hear from you. We've talked about this concept of better together, and I've been asked to tell you a little bit about what we have now in terms of programming. And there's efforts around diversity within ORMA, but also within faculty affairs, within the Joint Committee on the Status of Women, within an LGBT office, within our Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership Office, and many of our affiliates have diversity offices. So it's not in one space and at one point in time, but in multiple places. We have John Wilson here who represents our university in the Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Office. Across this is an understanding that we need multiple points for entry, exit, and re-entry. We need continuity of programming from K-12 through our college and our medical and our graduate students, to our fellows, our clinical and research fellows, to our faculty, to our leaders. That Harvard has been engaged in this for a long time, but will continue as we move forward. We need to learn to collaborate with one another, but also with our community. As we've moved forward, we've had Dean Martin, who was here, who at first added diversity to our mission statement of our school. Dean Daley mentioned earlier that our mission statement now has the terms diversity and inclusion in it. Critically important, because this work is not doing nice work or work on the side, but our work is towards improving, achieving, moving forward the mission of Harvard Medical School. There's also a community values statement now, where we talk about diversity and respect, but importantly, about potential to contribute, about seeking diversity, promoting equity, and social justice. These are part of the values of our entire community, not of our minority community or our gay community, but our entire Harvard Medical School community. It's been mentioned that one of the first things that Dean Daley did when he came was to establish a task force on diversity and inclusion that had representatives from our faculty, our students, our staff, our trainees, our hospitals, across the board. And I want to tell you just very briefly part of the recommendations that are coming out of this. A major part of this is addressing culture and communication, understanding that we need to deal with bias, unconscious and kind of conscious, microaggressions. We need inclusive images. It is wonderful to have Alvin Poussaint's picture here. It is wonderful to have Hinton's portrait. It is wonderful to have Harold Amos. But how do we make sure that the images we see across our campus and in our institutions reflect all of us and who we are, not just in the past, but today? It's about embedding diversity, inclusion, belonging, these issues of equity in everything we do, not just because it's Monday or Black History Month, but because it's a part of the fabric of who we are as an institution. It's about recruiting, retaining, and advancing diverse individuals across all levels, but also creating diverse leaders. And doing this in a way that we continue our pipeline programs, critical programs, if we're to address the issues in our larger society, and if we're to address the changing demographics of our society as we move towards a majority-minority society. It's holding ourselves accountable. It's not just saying it, but it's doing it. It's using principles such as continuous quality improvement. It's developing new knowledge and understanding and making our work around diversity and inclusion evidence-based like everything else we strive for in medicine. And it's about building a community where we all belong, where we feel that we can all contribute, where we can all be our best. It's a climate of collaboration and cooperation. It's reaching out and reaching in. So different people have mentioned parts of the diversity statement. It's understanding it's when our unique perspectives, our talents, our experiences are brought together and we're able to contribute to achieving the mission of our institution, that Harvard is truly better. As moving this forward, there are 3 major committees that the school has established. One is a committee on diversity and inclusion that really thinks about our policies and holding ourselves accountable. A diversity council, the first time in our school, that brings together representation from all of our departments and all of our hospitals. The first time we've come together to make sure that there is cross-fertilization, sharing of information, and partnering, and a quad diversity committee. This is not just about our clinical faculty, it's all about our basic science faculty. So in the end, it's about connections that enable us as we work across our institutions, our Harvard affiliates, but it's also understanding that creating change, moving towards equity and social justice, providing opportunities, means that we have to collaborate with our larger community. How do we collaborate with our public schools, with our public health commissions, with biotech and pharma? How do we all come together in creating a space where we can move forward on diversity and inclusion? Our organizations coming together, but us coming together as individuals. If we're truly going to move this forward, we, each as individuals, have a role to play. We each have a responsibility in moving us forward and making this a reality, understanding that we are better together. And with that, Dean Daley.
Wow. Let me grab a mic here. What an afternoon. What an inspirational afternoon. I'm also optimistic. Although it's clear we have much more to do, it feels to me like we have a community that is dedicated to doing it. Now, we've spent a lot of time listening today. I want to have a chance to hear from you. And because we have people who are in breakout rooms, overflow rooms, but also watching us on live stream, I want to use a tool to facilitate our conversation. And so if you have a cell phone with you, please text Harvard Med to 22333, and you'll be able to join the conversation. If you're at a computer, you can also go to pollev.com, that's pollev.com/HarvardMed, and then you can type your responses. So as we have reflected today, and as we've looked back 50 years, I'm struck that the concept of diversity and our ability to be inclusive, it's developed over time. So in the first question, if everybody is ready to respond, this is going to be community interaction here. So please, if you've got your phone, Harvard Med to 22333. You don't want to miss this. I'm going to ask some questions, and I want you to type in your answers. And then I think what you're going to see is a picture of what our community feels about some critical questions. And the first question, what does diversity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you? So as you type in the answers, you're going to start to see value. Oh, they are. They're on that screen, so I can see them. No, they're not. They're not anymore. Can we get those back? We had it for a second. We hope to get it back. Do you need to? Okay, here we have it. Maybe some themes have emerged. What does diversity, inclusion, and belonging mean? As crucial as air, integrity, fairness, variety, a seat at the table, all of us, organizational excellence, kindness. What we will do is we will assemble all of these, and I think you'll see the themes start to emerge. And we will take the messages and we will read them and we will take them to heart. Let's go to the next question. Better together. Now, what about the benefits of having increased diversity? Early on, there was the mention that the initial motivation was one of social justice. But I think over the last decades, it's become increasingly clear that it's really about excellence. It's really about excellence in our education, excellence in our ability to deliver the best care to our patients. So what is the single most significant benefit of having increased diversity at Harvard Medical School and the Harvard School of Dental Medicine? Survival.
I thought I'd be back from this.
Excellence. People are taking more time to answer this one, I guess. Learning.
Oh my gosh. Kept cutting out on those rooms.
Better outcomes.
Were you in one of the rooms? Okay. Because I thought the students that came back, they were just awesome.
Hello. We have a ghost. Better health outcomes. Inclusion. Excellence. We're seeing excellence come up again and again. Increased excellence. Allow us to see our blind spots. Think of the importance of educating each other. Cultural awareness. Reflecting the world. Advancement. Well, let me move to the next and the last question before I open it to more general questions. We are here to celebrate, but we're also here to imagine what we need to do to actually do better. So the next question I'd like you all to weigh in on. If we could take one step one step to improve Harvard Medical School and the Harvard School of Dental Medicine, what would it be? Representation. Debt-free. More black faculty. Financial aid. Free tuition. We'll have a debate about that. Educates the majority, makes them better physicians. That might be from the last one. Wow, this is, I'm about to seize here. Hold on. Wow. I'm hoping you're all reading them faster than I am. I think we are. We are seeing a financial theme. That's a good point. Well, I think as we gather these together, and we'll capture all of these and we'll take an accounting. I think those themes will, in fact, emerge. More URM faculty, more diverse faculty, supporting faculty, hiring more black faculty in basic science departments, more diversity in leadership, and then the financial issues, no debt, debt-free, financial aid, things that will allow us to be more to more people. So let me say that's, I think, just a smattering of your feedback. I think there's some very interesting themes that have emerged. I would like to take probably 5 or 10 minutes and open the floor to general questions, town hall style, speak your mind, ask questions. I'll respond as best I can, and we will finish with song at about 5:25.
Hello, Everard Coleman, class of '73, Harvard School of Dental Medicine. Along with myself and Matt Plummer, I think we have the highest percentage of classes represented. It was only 3 of us, 2 of us are here, 67%. And I was in the first class. I came 2 months after Alvin Poussaint was hired. And the 3 of us in the dental school and the 17 in the medical school were probably looked at as, they thought we were going to be the Black Panthers. I don't think Alvin knows this, but we know that Harvard was very, very nervous. And I think we said he was brought here to make sure we don't burn the school down. But those were the times. And I just want to stand up to applaud Harvard University for taking that step and for having the forward thinking to hire Alvin Poussaint. Because like he said, all 20 of us graduated. And that was unmatched by any other institution in the US. And it continued. The one thing that I would like to say is that history repeats itself. And we're in times now where it looks like some of those images that were shown by Dean Hundert are emerging again. And we have to make sure that we do not fall back on what was happening in 1950s and 1960s. So I applaud Harvard for looking forward and actually how would I put it? Being forward-thinking to know, okay, this is what we have to do now. The Reach Scholarship is a way forward for the tuition. When we were here, we didn't have to worry about tuition. You know, it was $2,500 a year. I went to Harvard School of Dental Medicine for $20,000 for 4 years. And that's to take my girlfriend, Beverly Coleman, class of '74, out to the movies. Okay, so $20,000 gets you what, 2 months? So I just wanted to applaud Harvard for that, and I thank you.
Well, I want to turn the applause to Dr. Beckwith, Dr. Kravitz, anyone else who was here at that time, who were really also the leaders of that. And I have to say there's a lot of things that make me proud as dean for all of the excellence in this community. But I can tell you, I've never felt prouder than today.
Hello, I'm Michelle Holmes, class of '81 and an HMS faculty member. And this has been a wonderful afternoon celebrating the incredible legacy of Dr. Poussaint and the recruitment, retention, and graduation of an incredible group of alumni here. So on to faculty. We've heard about that last question, the question about faculty. It seems to me that the success of Dr. Poussaint's legacy has been as miraculous and difficult as it has been, is relatively easier because of the single point of contact of students entering through the admissions. How is Harvard Medical School going to hold the disparate and autonomous departments across all the institutions to the same level of accountability for the faculty?
Hear, hear. So Joan and I are going on a campaign. We are visiting the chiefs, the division chiefs and the chairs meetings. We've been to the Children's, we've been to the Brigham, we'll be going to the Farber, the MGH, and many of the other affiliates. And we are presenting them with the raw data about where we stand and the aspirations for where we want to be. I think, Joan, you said earlier that we have charged each chair. We have 67 departments. And essentially, if each of those chairs imagines prioritizing diversity for 1 to 3 more faculty members, we will have raised the bar by 33% here in our community. So we review all departments every few years. Diversity and moving the needle on diversity is one of the issues that we hammer at. I think it was Andre Churchwell. Is Andre still here? Andre mentioned that we have to hold each of our chairs accountable and maybe even think about building it into their financial compensation to make sure that there's teeth in this. The other thing I want to mention is we would solve a major issue in our community if every single one of you would come back to us, please. I'm telling you, you are all invited back. You're all invited back. What I was blown away by is the leadership, right? We have trained phenomenal leaders, and we are having an impact across the country and across the world. I see Dr. Lorenzen back there, who, that's Cato, isn't it? Yes, hello. And Dr. Rice is here. We have extraordinary leaders that are having an impact. And boy, we would love to have you all come back home, or at least some of you. Other question?
Yes, Jessie Sherrod, HMS 75. I just want to extend my gratitude to Harvard Medical School and Harvard University for the opportunities that you've provided for me. I was the first student from Tougaloo College to attend Harvard Medical School. I made sure I wasn't the last one. In fact, I think we're up to about 15. I think we actually have one student here now today, too, from Tougaloo College. And I'm grateful that I was able to do well here, and it was all because of Dr. Poussaint. He actually came down to interview me. I actually had not even applied to Harvard Medical School, and I was in the Brookhaven Research Lab program with a Yale professor doing biochemistry, Dr. Delahas, who said, you need to apply to Harvard. This is December, before time to come. I wanted to go to Johns Hopkins because I had heard it was the #1 medical school.
There's all kinds of disinformation.
And then my second choice, was UCLA because I wanted to be in California.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I applied, and Dr.
Global
Poussaint
warming,
made
our
a
weather's going to
special.
be better.
Dr. Poussaint made a special trip to Tougaloo College, which he had known because he was in the civil rights movement. And Tougaloo College and HBCU was the hub of the civil rights movement. And I'm going to get to my question, but Dr. Poussaint came down and interviewed me, and I got accepted, and then I held on to UCLA because I wanted to go to California. Then I made the decision myself. I said, you only get one chance to go to Harvard. You can always go back to UCLA. So I went to Harvard. I went back to UCLA and did my training. I have a master's in public health from UCLA, and I'm in their Hall of Fame. I was one of the first in the group to go in 2002. Now, I think, and I was going to say this in the previous session, the underlying question here is, how do you approach structural racism or biases? Institutional racism. See, we dealt with individual racism in the 60s and 70s with Dr. Poussaint, and I did some marching myself. My father was a civil rights worker. So I think Harvard, and I think you're already getting at it, you know, at addressing the issue. But I think we need a plan, an approach, an institutional approach, and you've alluded to some things already, but a plan for addressing all of the elements of the root causes, because that's the only way we're going to achieve equity. Thank you.
Hear, 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 hear. There's no easy answer to that, but I would say one of the things that we are doing, both at the medical school and we have John Wilson here at the university, we're shining a light on it. We're talking about it. We're making it a priority. It's been a central issue for so many of our meetings with the Dean's Council, the Council of Leaders of all the schools. We've had fabulous leadership now with John Wilson at the university taking over. We've done the first pulse survey of the entire community, 50,000 individuals, and we're starting to disseminate what we've learned from that. And once again, it's pointing us to the issues that we have to address. We're doing it in our search processes. We're doing it at virtually every level. We will try our best to address the issues here within our community. Harvard should be a leader. Yes. It should not be, Harvard doesn't like to be mediocre or average in anything. And right now we're below average in our representation in our faculty. We're doing better in our pipeline, but I'm impatient. I'm not happy about waiting. I want it to happen now. Sir.
Hi, Dean Daley. My name is Charles Bridges. I'm in the class of 79. I was in the HST program.
Yes.
So, thank you. So I'm an MD, PhD as well. You know, I now work for Johnson & Johnson, so I'm in industry. And one of the things that I've observed in industry is that the definition of what we call diversity keeps slipping, in my opinion. What we call diversity today is disproportionately gender diversity, but not necessarily ethnic diversity. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a crisis in front of our eyes that we should not ignore. And that's a crisis that disproportionately affects African-American men. Not exclusively African-American men, but disproportionately does affect African-American men, among others. So, you know, one of the things I've observed in industry is where we check the diversity box, it now doesn't necessarily, essentially we've created ways around what we call diversity that allow us to continue to exclude certain folks that are underrepresented. Even the term, quote, underrepresented minority actually is not really used frequently anymore. And you pointed to the fact that although we've done reasonably well in our pipeline, say with students, we've not done as well in faculty and we've not done as well in industry. And I would argue part of that is because we have not focused on those areas of diversity that we need to critically address. So at Harvard Medical School and at the teaching hospitals at Harvard Medical School, do you agree with that observation? And if you do, what specifically will you do to address that?
I absolutely agree with that observation. And one of the sobering bits of data that Joan and I present when we are going around to speak to the chairs and chiefs is the history of representation of our communities across the last 20, even 30 years. And what we see is that we've increased the frequency, the percentage of women in our medical school class. It's lagging somewhat behind in our faculty, but that's been increasing dramatically. We've certainly increased the representation of Latinx in our students and increasingly in our faculty. Black women have been going up. Black men are stable or down over 20 or 30 years. And over the last few years, it's been starting to plummet. And as I recognize, even in our own students, a very significant number of our black men are from Africa. They're not African American men. Now, I think we need representation that's broad, but we need to attack this as a crisis. It is a crisis. And I can call out Dr. Cato Lorenzen, who has taken a leadership role in addressing this crisis, anchoring workshop at the National Academies to bring together thought leaders to articulate the problem, and then to put together a committee to seriously try to attack what the issues are and how we might address them. And Dr. Lorenzen is here. I hope he'll speak later, if not now. But so Joan and I are part of that committee, and I think it's got a very, very challenging and essential task. If you want to make any comments, Cato, on the program.
Yeah, well, it really is a crisis, and we had a workshop and we have a proceedings that's actually called the American Crisis, because the lack of black men in medicine, but we're also seeing it in science and engineering, really is a threat to the future of our country. And so we've had our workshop. We've now created, with the help of Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Aetna Foundation, Boroughs Welcome Fund, who've actually stepped up and helped to fund this. We've launched the roundtable on black men and black women in science, engineering, and medicine for much of the reasons that my colleague here has alluded to. And I want to thank George Daley for his leadership role. I called him and said, we're starting this, and not only do I want him to be a part of it, I want him to be on the steering committee of this. And he said, yes, I'm all in, and he's a member of the steering committee for this roundtable on black men and black women in science. And so thank you very much.
Thank you. I am acutely aware that I've gone over even a little bit of what I promised. We stand between you and the reception outside, but I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. But please join me in welcoming Jacqueline Bowen, who is the HMS class of 2016. She's currently a clinical fellow in anesthesia at Brigham and Women's, and she is going to conclude this remarkable day with a song. All right. Well, listen, before we conclude, I want to very much thank Nancy Oriole and Lisa Mayer, who together co-chaired the committee. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Lisa. You might not want to sit down, because I think we need one more round of applause for Dr. Poussaint and all he's done. And finally, let me thank all of you for being here, for helping us to celebrate. You are really what we are celebrating. And thank you all for your commitment. And let's have a nice reception. Good evening.